Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, theFellowKGB. You can follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. And it's Monday evening. It's almost 5 o'clock. It's the 20th of July. We're getting some positive reports from the NFL about training camps and their procedures to be testing for COVID. So things are coming around. We're getting there. We're going to be in camp soon. We just got to get through this first round of testing, and we'll see what happens. But in this video today, and I guess for the rest of the week, I'm going to be out of town in Chicago for the weekend on Friday through Sunday. So my schedule for this week, I think this is going to be a tight end video. I'm probably going to record a quarterback video tonight too. I'll drop that in a day or so. And then we'll probably do one more mock draft or something this week. So I'm trying to get you guys 3 videos this week. And then next week we'll do our individual running back video, receiver video. And I just want to show you guys my rankings, my projections, and where we're going with those. We're in a screen share right now on thefantasyfellowship.com. If you hover over the content tab, you can click on redraft rankings. And we got all your standard PPR, half PPR scoring. I'm going to be talking in terms of PPR leagues. I think most people end up playing those. So let's just look at my tight end rankings real quick. And I think I'm going to try to update. I try to update these maybe every other week. So I last updated these July 6th. I think my goal will be to re-update these this week. So there's a few things that moved around. So you can check out all those. And I'm kind of only ranking the top 36, tight end threes or so. But we're going to be looking at my actual projection document, which you can get on Patreon account. It's just $10 for the rest of July. We're going to be doing $15 for August. So if you want to get into that, this is your last, 10 days or so to get in at the $10 price. But here we are. We're looking at the tight end page. I have it filtered here by PPR. I guess we'll just start at the top here with Travis Kelce. I mean, he's been tight end 1 for like the last 3 or 4 seasons. And just the way the projections bounced, it pretty much came out to tight end 1. I got him projected for 251.5 points on the year. And the next closest is Kittle at 227. So I still have him a tier above Kittle. And Kelce can go as early as, mid round 2. It really depends if you're in a tight end premium. Of course, he should be a top 10 pick probably. But yeah, Kelce, clear lock to probably lead the Chiefs in targets. I'm going to bounce over here to the Chiefs page too, so we can kind of see the context of the team. Let me highlight Kelce. So Kelce's here. Got him projected for 92 receptions, 129 targets, just under 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. And basically where he finished last year, I kind of just shaved a little bit off because Tyreek Hill's going to be back, hopefully healthy for the full season. So I expected a little bit of a drop down on numbers, but I did give him more touchdowns. So I'm optimistic there. He really hasn't, last year was a down year in touchdowns, only 5 touchdowns. Mahomes missed a game and a half or 2 games, but he did score 10 the year before and 8 the year before that. So I think I might even be modest with my projection of 7 touchdowns. So there's more room for Kelce here. De facto tight end 1. I'm not going to argue. I don't really need to spend much time selling you guys on Travis Kelce. So he's the clear tight end 1. I got him projected for the most target share of all the tight ends. I think opportunity share too. And he's tied with Kittle in yard share. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, he's going to clock out number 1 in almost all tight end stats this year. So Kelce's the man. And then we'll roll into George Kittle here. I've got Kittle, number 2, projected for 80 receptions, 105 targets, just over 1,000 yards, 1,045, and 7 touchdowns as well. I have him at 227.5 overall points. And let's take a look at the San Francisco 49ers. So the cool part about, I guess this is the main difference between Kittle and Kelce, is Kittle, he doesn't have much competition for his targets. Yeah, we got Deebo Samuel, who's nursing a foot injury, rookie Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne. They got some running backs there. Kittle is the offense, so he's going to have everything kind of flow through him. That's just how the offense has been set up. And the thing that I found interesting is last year, again, he was over 1,000 yards, which is fantastic. Caught 85 balls, only 5 touchdowns though. The year before that, same thing, 88 receptions, a big year in yardage with almost 1,400 yards and only 5 touchdowns. The year before that, only 2 touchdowns. So I think Kittle's in for a career high in touchdowns this year. I have him at 7. It could be higher. It wouldn't surprise me if it's double digits, especially if Deebo Samuel is kind of slow out the gate. I heard heard someone, I don't know who it was on Twitter, but they speculated that he might even rest the first 4 weeks. They don't need Deebo Samuel's not going to lose them games if he's resting. And in the long term of things, he might be better off waiting the 3 to 4 weeks and getting that foot, all the way back to normal. So Kittle down here, he's the man in San Francisco. So the offense is going to run through him, and I don't know, career high touchdowns coming. I feel pretty good about that. He only needs, I guess, his career high is 5, so the bar is pretty low there. So I like Kittle to reach a new career high though, but the passing, it's not a very good passing volume. It's kind of similar to what I'm going to talk about with the Baltimore Ravens. They're in a low volume passing attack, but Kittle and Andrews are the man in both those offenses that get the majority of looks from their quarterback. So Kittle, you can where I see Kittle go is usually at the turn of the second and third round, especially if I get like the first or second overall pick. That's where I'm probably drafting Kittle, because you're sitting at 23 or 24 and you have the turnaround. So like that 24th and 25th, it's really hard to pass on Kittle. And you just get, there's kind of a tiering of things here where it's Kelce by himself, and then Kittle is also kind of by himself in the second tier, because he's going to get more opportunities than I think Mark Andrews. And the way Kittle, gets his yards after the catch, I could see him blowing up and maybe passing Kelce this year if Deebo Samuel's missing a few games. So Kittle's got a little bit of hidden upside there, and you can get him anywhere in the third round. I think that's a slam dunk. So Mark Andrews is our tight end number 3. I've got him projected for 68 receptions, 101 targets, 880 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He's got, the thing that I like about him is the target share. He's very comparable to my top 3 tight ends, and then you got a little bit of a drop off here between the next guys. But all these guys are over 21%, almost 22% target share, which is fantastic for tight ends. Opportunity share, it's not going to be as big for Mark Andrews because they run the ball a lot there. Same with George Kittle. They're on teams that really run the ball. So, but they're the main passing targets. So we love that. I got him projected for 210 fantasy PPR points on the season. Let's just quick scan the Baltimore Ravens. So I've got Mark Andrews, tied with Marquise Brown for targets at 101. I have Mark Andrews leading them in receptions at 68, and I gave the edge to Marquise Brown because the yards per catch should be a little bit higher, and then I do have them tied for touchdowns. But looking at what Mark Andrews did last year, and this is with Hayden Hurst in the lineup. So the thing I've been thinking about is Hayden Hurst is gone, and we might see Mark Andrews on the field even more as long as he can stay healthy. Mark Andrews could if you had to ask me who's going to beat Kelce and Kittle, it could be Mark Andrews. He could just be getting so much more volume. You see Hayden Hurst here get 30 receptions and 39 targets last year, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like some of that could go Andrews' way and lead to like a massive career season. Even last year was a really good career year for him, but I think there's meat on the bone still. So I love Mark Andrews. I gave him just a slight tick in his projections right now, but it was still good enough to be tight end 3. So everything about Mark Andrews, man, it looks good. So Mark Andrews, if you really wanted a tight end early, somewhere in that 3rd to 4th round range, end of the 3rd, mid to early 4th, I think that's the sweet spot. And then the next tight end here would be Zach Ertz. I haven't really been drafting a lot of Zach Ertz because he's like he's very similar to Mark Andrews, where he's probably going to lead the team in targets, but he's also got a lot of competition for those targets, I think. I have his target share below 20. It's still a good number, 19.68 target share. I got him projected for 82 receptions, 122 targets, 840 yards, and 6 touchdowns. The thing about Ertz is he doesn't catch a lot of touchdowns. He's purely a volume play. So if the value is right for you and anywhere in the 4th round, I think the 5th round, if I saw Ertz hanging out in the 5th round, that's usually where I would want to pounce on him. But the thing for me is the 4th round, and I guess I don't really get a lot of shares of Andrews because I'm drafting receivers in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. So I like Ertz. He's going to be a top 5 tight end as long as he's healthy. But he does have competition for targets with Dallas Goedert. I think year 3, they just drafted Jalen Reagor. Miles Sanders is going to get a lot of opportunities to catch the ball. Boston Scott. And then who knows what's up with Alshon Jeffrey. But, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And Ertz should be the leading team guy in targets. So I like Ertz. Just it depends on your value and what you want to do in the fourth round. Up next would be Darren Waller. And I think Waller was tight end 2 last year. Is that right? I mean, the guy just lit it up. He's not even really a tight end. It's kind of cheating. Um, so we see last year 90 receptions, 117 targets. That's insanely efficient. It's basically catching 9 out of 11 balls, 1,145 yards, 3 touchdowns. The touchdowns are stupid low for that amount of volume. So I've got him boosted. The thing, there's a lot of competition now for targets in Las Vegas. Last year, they really only had Tyrell Williams in and out of the lineup. Hunter Renfrow kind of caught on down the stretch. But there was no competition for targets. Now they kind of juiced up the receiver room. And I don't know. So I got Waller's numbers coming down a little bit. He's going to flirt with 1,000 yards. He's going to get a little – I should probably give him more targets, but I got him at 99 targets, 76 receptions, and 5 touchdowns. So I feel like these are low numbers, and he still clocks in as my tight end 5. And there's been a couple drafts where I get Darren Waller chilling in like the 7th, 8th round. And at that point, it's just like, okay, I mean, tight end 2s are really cheap. You don't really get a potential top 5 tight end that late. So I like snagging Waller. He's one of those guys that I watch for. And I guess my process when drafting tight ends is I like to be aware of the tiers. Like where I know Kelce and Kittle are going to go. Once you see Kittle, you know Andrews is the next man up. Maybe a guy like Ertz or something. But after those top 4, you know everyone's looking at Darren Waller as the best available. So I'm always looking to see who the best available tight end is, and then I kind of gauge, okay, I'm going to wait for Gronk. I got to pull Gronk here. It just kind of helps me to know who the next man up is and where I can start to plot my tight end. Like if you wanted to draft a tight end like Tyler Higbee, but you got to kind of wait and watch to see where like a guy like Jared Cook or Gronk or Jarwin goes, things like that. So that's about it for Darren Waller. Let's look at Jared Cook real quick. I got him projected 52 receptions, 74 targets, 715 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I mean, his yards and his opportunities aren't going to be as great because he's kind of the third guy for targets in that offense. But it's such a good offense that I like getting pieces of that. And I mean, down the stretch last year, Jared Cook was a boss. He pretty much. I mean, Michael Thomas got all of the attention, and Jared Cook was kind of able to do a lot of his damage in the red zone, which, I mean, they added Emmanuel Sanders. You got Alvin Kamara hanging around. I think it's going to be really tough to defend the Saints this year. I mean, just look at some of these numbers. Super consistent with this New Orleans Saints offense. And then, yeah, he had a couple multi-touchdown games. He was scoring if he didn't score one week, he was definitely scoring the next week. It took him a little bit of the time to get going here, especially with Teddy Bridgewater in there for a few games. But Jared Cook, man, he's one of those tight ends that I love to get because he's got top 5 upside, but no one's really drafting him to be that upside. His market is well below what it could be right now. So he's one of the hot buys for me this summer. Sometimes you get him as like the 9th, 10th, 11th tight end off the board, which just seems kind of stupid. So I love Jared Cook. Again, it's one of those things that I've been doing this summer where I'm drafting good players in good situations on, quality teams with continuity, and I'm thinking about the quarterback, and I'm thinking about the other pieces of the offense. So Jared Cook's one of my favorite tight ends to target right now. And then number 7, we got Rob Gronkowski coming in at 169.5 points. That was unintentional, but it worked. It worked out, so that's kind of funny. But anyways, Gronk, I kind of just updated his numbers a little bit today. He got moved up to tight end 7. 54 receptions, 82 targets, 735 yards, and 7 touchdowns. These are numbers that I feel like could be. He's been off for a year. Maybe he starts a little slow, but he's got a full training camp and he's been practicing all summer. So I think he can hit the ground running. He might even be faster. It looks like he lost a little bit of weight. Maybe he's putting muscle back on right now, but he might be quicker and harder to tackle this year. So that's kind of exciting. And he could lead Tampa Bay in touchdowns. So this next stretch of tight ends, these 4 guys are probably my favorite. I try to get 2 of these guys if I can because Jarwin's kind of cheaper. But back to Gronk, I think he can lead the team in touchdowns. He's going to be the red zone, threat when Tom Brady gets there. And I don't know, Tampa Bay, again, like I said, You know it's going to be a good offense. I'm not too worried about the continuity because they've, Arians has been there, Leftwich has been there. The offensive system is going to be the same. They're just going to let Tom Brady kind of dictate things to his favor. So Gronk, man, he could be a top 5 tight end. He's going much later than what I think his value is. So he's one of my targets right now. And then this is probably the first name that people are going to be like, huh? I got Dallas tight end Blake Jarwin at number 8 overall. I got him going for 62 receptions, 85 targets, 745 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And this 5 touchdown number feels low to me. I want to bump it up to maybe 6 or 7. So I think there's a tremendous hidden upside. And sometimes Jarwin goes like, outside of the top 12, top 15 tight ends, which just blows my mind. So he's my favorite tight end 2 target. I have him as a top 8 tight end this year. A lot of people are going to be nervous about the competition for targets. But if we look at how this Cowboys offense ran last year, you're going to see Jason Witten here at 63 receptions and 83 targets. All of those numbers are up for grabs. Same with Randall Cobb here. Randall Cobb, 55 receptions, 83 targets. So you're looking at 166 targets, and it looks like 118 total receptions up for grabs. So some of those are going to go, the majority of those are probably going to go to CeeDee Lamb. Maybe CeeDee Lamb, takes all of Cobb's and, a handful of the Witten targets. But there's still going to be an extra 70 targets to go around, whether those get sprinkled a little bit to Gallup, a little bit to Cooper. But Jarwin's going to be the biggest beneficiary of Witten and Cobb's absence, I think. We already see last year that Jarwin had 31 receptions and 41 targets. So Dak Prescott in 2019, to the tight ends, he had 126 targets for 95 receptions, 900 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So that could be Jarwin's ceiling. He's obviously not going to get every single tight end stat for the Cowboys, but it wouldn't surprise me. Like my favorite number of looking between Witten and Jarwin is the efficiency numbers of the average yards per catch. Witten at he's an old man, Jason Witten, so 8.4 yards per catch, but Jarwin down here at 11.8. Man, he's got some yards after the catch ability. And again, those NFC East defenses don't scare me. So that's 6 games where I'm going to want Jarwin in my lineup. And I don't know, even if he gets these, say you just give him the 83 targets that Witten got, it's going to be a very productive year. Jarwin, he caught about 75% of his passes, again, almost 12 yards per catch, and he caught 3 touchdowns just on his 40 targets. So that's why I think, you could essentially almost double this stat line. And then there's potential to be more. So I don't know. I've been talking about Jarwin so far pretty much all my videos this year. So he is my favorite tight end guy, and he's the one guy that I know if I miss out on the tight end run of like Jared Cook, Rob Gronkowski, or even Tyler Higbee there, I'm always, snagging Jarwin when I can. So he's my tight end 8. Tyler Higbee, he's a really polarizing tight end for this year. He had that tremendous run down the stretch last year when Gerald Everett got hurt, and he probably won people championships. I've got him projected for 65 receptions, 88 targets, 700 yards, and 5 touchdowns. This number also feels low. There's kind of a lot of uncertainty with Higbee because, Everett's going to be back, and they did lose Brandon Cooks. So, how are they going to run their offense this year? Is there going to be more 2 tight end sets? Are they going to, keep Everett and Higbee on the field together? Are they going to be subbing in and out? So this is kind of an unknown, situation for Tyler Higbee. He's been in the league for 3 years now, and he just blossomed the last 5 games of last season. So it's kind of like a high risk, high reward. But either way, if I've kind of seen Tyler Higbee start to fall a little bit, if he falls, into the 9th, 10th tight end range, I think that's where his value is because he's got upside of a top 5 tight end. He showed us that last year. And who knows with Gerald Everett, if Everett gets hurt again or if they do really fully commit to a 2 tight end set, I really like Tyler Higbee's upside. So this kind of feels like a floor projection. I do have Gerald Everett projected for a healthy amount. He's actually my tight end 23. Goff loves the tight ends, as a unit last year. These 2 guys combined, let's count Johnny Munt here, but the tight end group as a whole last year combined for 1,168 receiving yards, 156 targets, and 110 receptions. Only 5 touchdowns, which is kind of low for volume, But Jared Goff likes his tight ends. That offense is very friendly to the position. So that's why I like Higbee. Again, continuity, good passing offense. Goff's not that great, but it's the volume and the continuity that I like. So Higbee's a favorite of mine. And then we got Hayden Hurst coming in here. And this number also, he's one of these guys that excites me too. I think I would group him in this tier, even like everyone basically on from here I'm really fond of. So Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper's out of town, gets traded to Atlanta. I don't really see a big difference between Hayden Hurst and Austin Hooper. I think they're basically the same player athletically. Hayden Hurst might be, they're probably even like the same age too. So it feels like a lateral move where I think Austin Hooper had so many targets the last few years in Atlanta, where it's kind of hard for me to ignore that. Okay, they're going to try to use Hayden Hurst in the same way. So I kind of took a template of Austin Hooper's 2019 season, and then I gave like 80 to 90% of that to Hayden Hurst this year. So I got him going for 65 receptions, 91 targets, just under 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Austin Hooper was never really a big touchdown guy. I think his career high is 5 or 6. So that'll remain to be seen. I think Hayden Hurst has been more effective in the red zone than Austin Hooper has. So maybe Hurst gets more touchdowns. But either way, I think he's got a really exciting floor of a top 10 tight end this year. So like my favorite strategy, like if I had to choose 2 tight ends out of this list to roll with, I would probably wait for Blake Jarwin and Hayden Hurst because they're probably the cheapest. I know some people get really high on Hayden Hurst, but his ADP seems to have come down recently. So we'll see what happens in training camp. But if we're getting some positive beats in training camp about Hurst and Matt Ryan's connection, it's going to be full steam ahead, and I'll probably bump those projections up. So those are my top 10 receivers. Dallas Goedert here at 11. I think he finished 10th last year. The cool part about Dallas Goedert is you can get him, his price tag is a tight end too. So he's going anywhere in like the 13 to 15, 16 tight end range. And he's got, of all the tight ends, he's got probably the most hidden upside. He's still technically a handcuff to Zach Ertz, but he's more than a handcuff because you can actually whip him out as your tight end 1. If we look last year at what he was doing down the stretch, and I think Ertz did miss 1 game, and Goedert, had himself a day. So we see here, Goedert, tight end 10 last year, 87 targets, 58 receptions, 607 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. To Ertz's 6 touchdowns. I think that's pretty interesting. So Goedert's a really big red zone presence, averaging 9.9 fantasy points per game last year. But basically from we'll call it week 6 on, Goedert could have been your starter, and he had a really good showing in the playoffs. Like just look at the last 3 games here, 12, 10, 8 targets. He hasn't yet to break a 100-yard receiving game in his career, so I bet he does that this year. But yeah, really strong finish to end the year. He showed up really well in the playoff game too. And he's got a floor of about 7 to 10 points, even with Ertz on the field. I want to say this Dallas game was without Ertz. So if anything happens to Ertz, like we're ranking Dallas Goedert as a top 5 tight end. And besides that, he already does have top 12 tight end upside. So he's a poor man's tight end 1. And he's got this basically this nuclear, I don't know what to call it, but it's like an insanely huge handicap chip where if anything happens to Ertz, Dallas Goedert could be a league winner. So I love Goedert at his ADP. And then basically after that, like I just got this mess of players here that I really don't know what to do with. I love Jonnu Smith's upside in Tennessee. Delaney Walker's out of the town now. I don't know if Delaney Walker's signed anywhere, but he should be maybe fielding an offer as camps get started. But I like Jonnu Smith. Outside of A.J. Brown, of course, Jonnu Smith might be the next most targeted player. And Tannehill showed some good chemistry with Jonnu Smith down the stretch last year. So Delaney Walker's out of town. I like the volume there. He's got, as far as target share, because it's a low-volume passing offense, his numbers for target share put him, I think, towards the top 5 or 6. And then same with yard share, too. So he's kind of checking those boxes. If you watch my videos on the target share, opportunity share, and yard share, those are the analytic videos that I posted. But those are really important for tight ends because the higher the opportunity shares, the yard shares, and the target shares, the more likely that tight end is going to be a tight end 1. So Jonnu Smith is checking the boxes for me this year. Hunter Henry, I really haven't been drafting him or any Chargers. Even Austin Eckler makes me nervous. just because the uncertainty at the quarterback position and just a lot of turnaround here, trying to learn from a new quarterback, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or a rookie, and then just everything going against them as as far as COVID goes right now, and they're moving to a new stadium. That doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but I'm just nervous about the Chargers. Hunter Henry, I probably wouldn't draft him at his ADP unless he fell to the 10th, 11th, 12th tight end. But I do have him projected for about 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. He just needs to stay healthy, really. They just franchise tagged him, so this is a really important year for him if he wants to get paid. If Hunter Henry puts together, I guess this is the positive take on Hunter Henry. If he plays a full 16 game season, catches 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, gets over 700 to 800 yards, he'll get paid. He'll see some Austin Hooper money. He's young enough and just entering his prime. So, but I really only like him if the value of ADP falls. Evan Ingram's another one of those weird guys who just can't stay healthy. He's got all the talent in the world, but all of a sudden, it seems like there's a lot of competition for targets there, whereas a year or two ago, there really wasn't a lot of targets competition besides Odell Beckham. But now you got Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton. Saquon Barkley's still going to catch a lot. So it's really unclear of the pecking order in New York. And then Evan Ingram really can't stay healthy. So I like these two guys are kind of tied together for me, where they both have top 10, maybe even top 5 upside as players, depending on touchdowns, and yards and all that stuff. But they just can't stay healthy. So I mean, when those guys are up to, in my queue to look at for picking them, I'm usually like, I still see Higbee, I still see Jarwin or Hayden Hurst. So I usually wait on those kind of guys. But I get it though. Maybe I guess if you're looking at drafting, if you really like Hunter Henry or you really, really want Evan Ingram, don't be afraid to take them, and then just make sure you pair them with a really good backup option. Some of the guys I've already discussed, whether it's Goddard or Jonnu, Blake Jarwin, you can make a tandem of it. I think that's my favorite. The way I look at my tight ends is it's a unit. I usually end up drafting 2 every year that I think have top 12 upside, and usually one of them works out. So it's worth a little dart throw at the position, and then it just allows you to take receivers and running backs and load up on those important positions. But let's kind of keep finishing out here. I'll probably cut it off once we get towards, maybe we'll stop at Herndon and Ebron. But TJ Hawkinson, year 2, Detroit. He had a really massive week 1 last year, but he was kind of in and out of the lineup. I got him as tight end 15, almost 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. He really needs to stay healthy so we can see his full potential, but he's got a lot going for him with Matt Stafford coming back. He's got weapons to help him, get into advantageous mismatches, with Galladay and Marvin Jones, and I mean, even Danny Amendola and the running backs they got there. So Hawkinson, kind of one of those, forgotten guys where you could, if you're looking at drafting 2 tight ends, I love getting Hawkinson as my tight end too sometimes. Austin Hooper down here at tight end 16. I'm probably lower on Austin Hooper than most experts that I've seen. I just don't want anything to do with the Cleveland offense, I think. I think people are I like Baker Mayfield. I love Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And I even like Odell to some extent. But Jarvis Landry, who knows if he's going to be ready to start the year right away. So maybe that's a bull case for Austin Hooper. But I mean, the Cleveland Browns going to Kevin Stefanski now as the head coach, who's been in Minnesota the last few years. This is going to be a very run-heavy team. I think the volume's coming way down for Austin Hooper. So I've got him projected for 54 catches, 83 targets, just under 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. Maybe David Njoku gets moved, and I feel better about it. But I mean, they're still going to try to. If Njoku stays, they're going to try to use both guys. So it really, I don't know. This is a guy that I've got him as a floor of about tight end 16. But if you want to draft him, you almost have to spend, an ADP of tight end 10 or so. So he's been one of those guys that I've just been fading, and I continue to look for the Goddards, the Jarwins, the Jonnus, things like that. So I'm really nervous about the volume in Cleveland. And then say Landry's good to go. He's going to be the 3rd, 4th option, kind of like he was in Atlanta, but the volume's just coming way down. So that makes me nervous. I guess I'm kind of low on Mike Gesicki too, because this really depends on if Tua, starts getting starts over Fitzpatrick. Gesicki really benefited with Fitzpatrick down the stretch last year. So I guess there's kind of an uneasiness for me. I'm not really sure how that Miami, offense is going to look with Tua. Is he going to like throwing to the tight ends kind of thing? So I've got him as a floor of about tight end 17. Ian Thomas is another kind of fun guy, kind of like Jonnu Smith. His veteran Greg Olsen left. He's in Seattle now. So now Thomas is going to walk into the tight end 1 spot with a new quarterback, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. And then they got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. So that's 4 stud receiving options, which puts Ian Thomas 5th, which I guess it's kind of like my Blake Jarwin case where, the defenses are going to be so focused on all these other playmakers that Ian Thomas is probably going to, benefit from a lot of single coverage on linebackers and whatnot. So I like Thomas's upside as my tight end too. I think that's going to be a team that throws the ball a lot. Their defense is not going to be good. They're going to probably finish last in the NFC South. They're going to be coming from behind a lot. They're learning on the fly with Teddy Bridgewater, new quarterback, new offensive system, a couple new faces. So I think the volume with Thomas is interesting, and you get him as your tight end too, see what happens. Jack Doyle, tight end 19, another interesting guy. Phillip Rivers has really enjoyed his tight ends throughout his career. And they did let Eric Ebron go to Pittsburgh, so Jack Doyle's kind of the standalone guy there. They did bring in Trey Burton, but I don't think Burton's going to, dominate as much opportunity as Eric Ebron has the last 2 years. So Doyle, he needs to stay healthy, but he's an interesting low-end guy that I think could provide, low-end tight end 1 production if you need to. He's going to look best as a tight end too, but he's a guy that could really surprise us because Phillip Rivers, with his tight ends, Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry, they've been very reliable for him throughout his career. I guess I'm also low on Noah Fant here. I've got him going for 45 receptions, 625 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The problem with Noah Fant is that they just added so many receivers here. Jared Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton year 3. They added Melvin Gordon. I'm just worried. I got him building on what he did last year. He had a really solid rookie season. So I improved his numbers. Everything went up. His receptions went up, his targets went up, his yards went up, and his touchdowns. Everything went up for Noah Fant. But I try to project everyone for 15, 16 games. So I think it's going to take a couple injuries for other tight ends and stuff for Noah Fant to get up there. But he's also facing a lot of competition for targets now, whereas last year it was only Cortland Sutton commanding targets. So I think that might be a little bit tough. So I'm not really into drafting Noah Fant as my tight end 1. I think he looks best as your tight end 2. Compete with somebody, maybe he does shine, mid to late season, or it's, maybe someone gets hurt on the Broncos and things kind of bounce his way. But I guess Eric Ebron down here at tight end 21, he's a guy that could really blow up here based on how things start going in camp with Ben Roethlisberger. Eric Ebron led the league in touchdowns just 2 years ago. He's still really young, and this kind of feels like a floor projection. I know Eric Ebron, he was kind of covered up in that Indianapolis Colts offense. They didn't really set him free. Only Vance McDonald stands in his way. So I'm actually really excited for Ebron. Tight end 21 feels like his floor. He's another guy that if you get him as your tight end 2, I think there might be some really good streaming value with him. And then I guess I'll kind of just read off some of the other names here of guys that I'm keeping an eye on, whether it's best ball or dynasty. So like a guy like Chris Herndon, he's got like a huge range of outcomes. I got him as a tight end 22. Gerald Everett, if anything happens to Higbee, Everett's going to be a guy that we're going to want. I don't really know what to do with the Seattle tight ends. I got them grouped together, Will Dissly and Greg Olsen. We'll see if Dissly's ready to go for the start of camp, but that's probably going to be a 50-50 split. Dawson Knox, I got him improving year 2. Nick Boyle, Hayden Hurst is gone, so I got Nick Boyle. Last year, besides Travis Kelce, Nick Boyle was the second tight end in terms of total snaps. He's an excellent blocker, and he's going to be able to figure out some red zone work, I think, too. So, it's just a guy to keep an eye on. But Irv Smith's going to take a step forward. Jay Sternberger. Tyler Eifert in Jacksonville might be kind of interesting as a super sleeper. They just had like a revolving door at tight end last year. They couldn't keep one guy healthy for like 2 or 3 weeks, it seemed. But it seemed like Minshew liked throwing the tight ends. It's Eifert, it's Jay Gruden. So that's kind of interesting. Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham. I'm not really into drafting these older tight ends on, less than ideal passing situations. And then it's just a bunch of guys here that I think, we're probably not going to rely on. So I would maybe a Houston tight end develops. Jordan Akins is kind of interesting. Logan Thomas in Washington. Let's watch. This is the deepest sleeper of the tight ends. It's Logan Thomas. The only tight end he has for competition in Washington is Jeremy Sprinkle, who was their leading tight end last year. But Logan Thomas, if you forget, he was the Virginia Tech quarterback that converted to tight end. He's been with Detroit the last few years, but Washington picked him up, and I think he's got a really good chance at running away with the tight end one spot in camp. So just a name to keep an eye on. But I'll probably touch back on that report on him once we see actual camp notes and practices and stuff. So OJ Howard's down there, David Njoku's down here, a couple names. But that's going to pretty much do it for my tight end review. If you like the video, don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's really appreciated. If you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google, anything else, you could leave us a review, give us a rating, especially on Apple. We're trying to, just get more attention to the Fantasy Fellowship, what we're doing here. And we're just trying to grow the channel. So I appreciate all the time and the comments and the likes that you guys have been doing. And I'll have the quarterback video out a day after this video, and then we'll do one more mock draft to finish the week. But if you have any questions or you guys want to see anything in specific, let me know. I can do videos on just one player in general, or we could do a certain mock draft or anything like that. So I'm open to suggestions. And thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it all. And thanks. Have a good one. Peace.